Welcome back to Limitless, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Please click on that like and subscribe button if you guys enjoy the content. But we got a ton of work to do, so let's dig in. Alright, so when I last left you guys off, we had just fabbed up the rear side panels. This video, I'm going to be clipping in and out. I'll try to walk you guys through what's happening. I'm just going to be building the side panels that are directly in front of those rear quarters. So I'll show you some footage of that now. Same sort of process. 3/4 inch MDF. You know, cut out to shape exactly what I want. Hammer formed it around. All nice and straight edges other than that one curve. And they turned out quite well. Hopefully you guys can see some of this here. And right after forming that, obviously, then I've got to start building the chassis itself. So I started off with this 2x1 1/8 wall for the main frame structure that goes on the bottom. That's also to raise up the body 2 inches because I needed the height for the motor I was using, there's also an update on that coming up as well. So I cut all my angles in the tubing, welded them all together. You know, pretty simple process. There's no point in showing you guys everything that happened there. So that gives me my main structure. Cut some side pieces or some pieces to join them together. Welded those all in place. So then I had something to work off of. So next up, I believe I got a call about a new motor, shockingly, another one. So I saw on Kijiji there was a Hayabusa for sale, and it was relatively close enough to me, and an excellent deal. The guy actually had two different motors for sale. He had one that was a nitro motor, I believe he said, which would have been nice, but buying fuel around where I live is pretty much impossible. So went out, picked up this Hayabusa, and began tearing that apart. You'll see some of that here as well. Tore the motor out so that I had something to work off of for the mounts. So getting the motor into place, I went through several different options, ton of work, because I actually fabbed it up, put it into place. So first up, after getting the main frame rails in place, I had to build the suspension mounts. Figure out exactly the angles that I wanted on that, and that took a absolute ton of time. You know, it has to be perfect, and so I got the whole front end mocked up, got everything tacked into place, and then I started placing the motor, getting it where I wanted, finding out after I had the motor mounted that it was too much of an angle for U-joints or for CVs, you know, to be able to last long. So rethink again, slid the motor over so it was way in the driver's side and up towards the front of the vehicle for almost 8 inches, and managed to get it pretty much down within, 3 degrees, I believe. So it was more or less than 2 degrees, sorry. So there was more than enough room for it to work, but I wasn't super happy about it. There's 90% of the time there's going to be only a driver in there anyways, so all the weight is going to be on that side, and I didn't like it. So scrap that idea, rethink it, get the motor back over, and then decided let's go with an angled motor. And a couple of advantages to doing that, actually. It allows a little more space for the exhaust to come out, because I'm actually bringing the exhaust forward and then around the motor and then following the drive shaft back. So I'll have a bunch of pictures here coming up that are showing you guys how that looks. Now I had to move the rear transmission over, and I tried multiple spots on that, and now I'm just about to start making another mount for that as well. So once that rear mount is made, then I can finish up the back end. So then I started building the tunnel down the center, which is really, it's most of the structure of the Jeep as well. Get that all buttoned up and get some nice cross braces in there, and it's surprisingly, with the engine mounted, it's actually quite light. You know, a person can't pick it right up, but I can pick up the front end, like grabbing onto the main front rails, just with arm strength. Like, so I mean, that's pivoting on the far back of the vehicle, but it's pretty impressive. I don't know too many cars that a guy my size can just go and pick up the front end on, so kind of exciting. Then I went to go put all the body panels back on, got the cowl in place with the dash, and noticed somewhere I messed up on some measurements or something, and the top cowl was actually wider than the Jeep was, so I had to take out almost an inch out of the center of that cowl in order to, you know, allow my other body panels to sit vertical. So here's some pictures of that as well. Cutting that out, welding it in, and if it wasn't for almost 100-year-old steel, it probably wouldn't have been so bad. But you know, there's all kinds of stuff that's bubbling out of the steel just from sitting that long. So that wasn't very fun. Now that piece has been sent off for sandblasting now. I should have did that first, but I need it cleaner for any more welding that I have to do on it. So now I'm at a point, I am waiting on a drive shaft. I've got a bunch of ideas for that, a whole bunch of ways that I can do it. I think I'm just going to be going with a CV in the front and rear, and even though I'm pretty much at 1 degree or less on my angles, I'm going to be waiting for that before I mount this rear trans. I want to make sure that it is exactly where it needs to be. A lot of ways, like I've done a ton of measuring on it to make sure, but I don't want to order another drive shaft. I don't want to do that twice. So, all right. So, like I said, we got the front end mocked up. I will likely still be doing bracing down on the bottom here as well. Probably, I was thinking from the lower mount up to this upper mount. We'll see. Haven't fully decided yet. I gotta make sure where my shocks are gonna be mounting and with the pull rods and everything. So motor is in place. I had to add these for lifting, and the reason is I want to be able to lift this out without using that, because if I need to pull this out and mount it onto my engine stand, obviously I can't be using that to level it. So it took quite a while to get that so the engine sits level when I lift it in and out. I have a pipe right now being used as alignment for the drive shaft, just to make sure I've got my angles right. So I've got my rear control arm mounts, exact same position but reverse for the back. So I'd have a downward slope towards the front. So that'll give me a good amount of anti-squat, and then see the angles there, and it should be opposite of this. So my rear one is straight on this one, and the front one is sloped. So it's all to give me the proper geometry for anti-squat and caster and camber and everything that I need to make this work the way that I want it to work. I mean, there's 100 ways to do it, so this just works for me. So I spent a whole bunch of time trying to get that exact 5-degree angle on the same that I have on the motor, and then getting this trans mounted so it lines up perfectly. So I believe I'm in the right spot now. I'm probably actually going to make the 2 side mounts first. Go right onto here. So 1 on each side. After I make those, then I can remake the rear one, because it's going to be quite difficult with a 5-degree angle on it when I want my bars to be straight. And you can see just how much room I've got for exhaust now. You know, I've got 5 inches on this back one, probably, you know, a little more than 6 or something on the front one. And seating position, I had to remove a lot of the tubing on this side and remake it. There wasn't enough room for the pedals and the driver, so passenger is going to be a little bit more cramped, but obviously driver is more important. So the one thing I'm worried about is this bar. My foot is likely going to just touch it with the pedal box, or the tip of my toes are just touching it. So it all depends on how my seats are mounted, and I won't really know that until I have the rear bodywork done, like the wheel wells, because the seat will be back as far as it possibly can in order to not hit those. So once I know that, then I'll know exactly where my pedals are going to have to go. I built up this little cross brace here, just to add a little bit more strength. There will still be a full bar in between here, a welded in bar, but everything needs to be removable from the top, because I don't want to have to put this thing up. Like, I don't want to have to lift it up in the air to try and pull the trans out of the bottom. It's not going to be ideal. My tunnel is going to be, or the floor is going to be glued onto the bottom and riveted, so easiest way is just to make everything removable from the top. So the way it is right now, you pull this off and then you can pivot it out. It's not an issue. Now the exhaust, the reason why I'm going around the front is because there's likely gonna be a turbo in here somewhere. So then I can be bringing it around through here, underneath the sprocket, well, the drive shaft in here, and I think it's quite likely that I'm gonna go down through the floor right there just before the lift on the floor. And the reason is I have enough room to come out. I have enough room to come out beside the trans right now, but once I have my pull rods and shocks set up, I may not have that room anymore. So gonna have to wait and see on that anyways. The exhaust is a long ways away. Alright, thank you guys for watching this update video. I'm going to keep plugging away on the Jeep and hopefully get another one out to you guys a lot sooner this time. I won't let it back up as much. I'll try to film a little more for you. A lot of this, when you're just working with tubing, it's the same thing 100 times over, except for you're remaking tubes, you're remaking them, and you know, trying to get your angles exactly right, and it's extremely boring footage to watch. So hopefully when I get my heim joints in, my ball joints, and the chromoly tubing for the control arms, things will go a little better. And see you guys on the next one.